Dun. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this, the first webinar of the fall term. We are offering this masterclass for you in Stova. I'm Steve McGillivray. I work in the Office of University Events and Protocol. It's just going to sound like I work for Stova, but no, I am right here at ASU in Old Main. Flying solo today, my other co-hosts are out doing other events, which happens, so it's just going to be us chickens in this session. And what makes the masterclass series a little different is that it's a deep dive into the registration module. We're going to be looking at every aspect of the Stova registration system to answer all those questions, or try to answer all those questions that come up. And again, as I mentioned, this is part of a series. For the next 4 Thursdays, we're going to be building an event and looking at those different aspects of an event registration back end. Today, it's event info and registrant rules, and you can see their series here. We also have 2 additional master classes, one that deals with the reports and functions, all the great reports you can get out of Stova, and also how to manage attendees in the system. And then the event manager webinar is about the add-on features that come with the registration module, the virtual event features, check-in features, and the badging labels and certificate printing that you can do. I also want to give a shameless plug for our other webinars that we're offering this term, the marketing module for making simple email campaigns within Stova, the website builder for creating websites in the system. And if you just need a refresher later in the term, or you get new staff on board, you want them to get up to speed on Stova quickly, we offer the Stova Essentials, which gives just the basics of creating an event registration site. So today, again, Event Builder Part 1. So we'll focus on how to create a new registration site. We're going to focus also on the first tab of the registration site, the Event Info tab, how to customize basic details. We're going to go field by field to let you know what's important and what's not when you're setting this up. Another sub-tab of Event Info is Registrant Rules, which is where you control the group bookings feature and allowing your attendees to modify their registrations. And we'll also be talking about waitlisting. Again, that's under Event Info. And finally, we'll talk about categories, which I think is the most powerful feature inside the registration module. So first, a couple of housekeeping before we jump in. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with everyone who signed up. After the session is over, you'll get an email with a link to the recording. Also, as we go through here, and as you go through the system, you may have already encountered this. We are in the Stova system, but you may see terms like Eventry or even, God forbid, eTouches. Those were old names of this company. It's the same platform we've been using for 6 years, but they had a name change last year, so we're still a little getting used to Stova. And like I say, you'll still see Eventry pop up now and then in documentation and even in the system. So do not be alarmed. It's all still the same system. As I go along here, if I'm going too fast, please feel free to unmute your microphones and ask me a question, or put it in the chat. And I'll be sure at the end to check that chat feature and answer any of those questions moving forward. Okay. Now, a couple of things are going to be out of scope. If you've been to a masterclass before, especially part 1, this might be a little different. What we're not going to be talking about today is getting your user account, how to set it up, how to navigate the main platform. We're not talking about that today. We're just going to dive right in to an event registration. So buckle up, and here we go. And this is the type of event I'm going to create in Stova. It's a big event so that I can show off all the different features. Multi-day, multi-session conference and trade show, comes with a worldwide audience. registration site will accept registrations for everyone connected to the event, not just the attendees, but also exhibitors for the trade show, sponsors, and even our staff. There will be fees connected with different aspects of the registration. We'll offer different kinds of discounts to different parts of the system. Okay, and also this will probably be key today. Exhibitors will be allowed to have reps as part of their fee. So when we get to the category section, that's where that little tidbit is going to come into play. So let us just dive in here. So I have gone to this, and that's another shameless plug for our support site, Stova at ASU, which is stova.asu.edu. You can log in to this website to get all of our how-to information and some tutorials that we have. But on the homepage, the login to your ASU Stova account is here. You may have bookmarked some sites. If you ever have a challenge, just come back to the homepage, click on this button, and you'll be taken into the login page. Enter your ASU Right ID. And now you've entered your team account. Actually, you're at the cloud level. And just to give you a few basics, reminders of how to navigate here. So over on the left is my team folder. And I won't see anything here until I click on a folder. Now, because I see this plus sign in front of the folder, that means there's more stuff inside this folder. If I want to see that, I click it. And there are all the other folders I have created in my team, and if I wanted to see what's in there, I would click on those folders. So we want to talk about creating our first event. Now, it looks like what you should do is click the big blue button, Create New Event. We do not advise that because that could create a registration site that has no ASU branding in it. It's going to be Stova branding, but I'm going to show you the proper way to use that button if you click it. But before I do that, this is what we recommend you do. Every unit will have a 01 ASU templates folder. Okay, if you don't have that, contact us, or maybe somebody renamed it as something else, but everyone should have a 01. You can click on that, and inside are the ASU branded templates we provide all units. The most recent template is 4.2.0, which was deployed actually last week. It's a brand new template with a few minor code tweaks and some branding updates. So what we recommend that you do is that you click the clone button of the template. Don't click on the name. That will take you into the event registration, and you want to save this as your master. So click on the clone button, and this is the first screen you'll see. What do you want to call your new event? And again, I'm doing the I should call that something different, but that'll do for now. This is an opportunity to decide which folder that this event will show up in. By default, it selects the folder that I am in, which is the templates folder. I don't want it there, so I'm going to highlight the next level up, which is when I want to find it. Down here, you see select which of these events modules you want to clone. Why is this here? Well, it's a possibility that you are not cloning the template, but you're cloning one of your own previous events, which is fine. You may have activated some of the event enhancement modules in that previous event, and this is your opportunity to turn them off. This is the only chance you get. You can't, once they're on, there's no way to turn them off except when you're about to clone again. Now we need the registration module. I'm going to leave that there, and I have no other modules activated, so I could just click submit. Okay, now I am in my registration for this first go round from a clone of my template. But now I'm going to give you something extra that I've never taught any other group before. I'm going to go back to the to my event screen here, and I'm going to show you the proper way to use the big blue button. Don't tell Laura. I've never done this before. So you click Create New Event. Again, give it a name. I'm going to call this Big Blue Button. Okay. The event code field is just an internal code. Up to you if you put anything there for your team. It has no functions whatsoever. For us, we decide where we're going to put this. Again, I'm going to put it there. Hit Submit. And you have an event that has nothing turned on. Not even the registration back end is turned on. You can tell that you've done that because if you hold your mouse over registration, there's no pull-down menu. If you use our template, there'd be a pull-down menu already activated, but there's nothing here. This is the last time you're going to see this page, which is all the different modules you can enable in registration. So I'm going to click registration, the main module, and then you'll hit this. And this is the secret sauce of using this properly and getting ASU branding. Do not use the Use Standard Registration settings. That will give you a blank slate Stova branded template. Use the clone registration settings. Again, the key word, clone. And when you do that, it will give you a pop-up list of everything in your team folder. So look for our template in this list. Select it, hit Clone Settings. Give it a minute. And now you are in an ASU branded event registration using the Create New Event blue button. Okay, so again, we don't recommend doing it that way, but if you click the big blue button by mistake and you happen to not know where to go next, that's what you have to do. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my original, just so I'm not going to confuse anybody any further. Okay. Now I am on the overview page of my event registration. The way to get back here, because this is, you'll never see it again, is over here, this link where it says overview. That's the only way to get back to the overview page. The overview page is to give you, as the name suggests, an overview of your event. As you start getting registrations, a little graph will appear here that shows registrations over time. It'll actually bump these other buttons down to show you that. It's a good visual. This is also where you can see if you have a website, an email campaign, or a survey linked to the registration site. Or conversely, if you would like to create a website, email campaign, or survey connected to this registration site, you could do that by clicking one of the Create buttons here. Okay, it's a great way to navigate quickly back to email campaigns or to websites you have built in the Website Builder. The fields provided here, we will see these again on on the registration backend. But let me just point out what you're seeing. So the event name is what I created at the beginning. Again, here's that event code. We saw that from, I think, when I clicked the big blue button. Event city, that's being pulled from location data. Here is one way that you can move your event registration to other folders is on the overview page by changing it here on this field. Make a change and then save and stay, and that event will be saved in a different folder. Regardless of how you move an event registration, it will not be broken when you move it. All the links will still work. Okay? What is event type? Event type is used by something called cross-event reporting. So if you want to generate a report about all the receptions that you've held in a given time period. This is how you would filter that report by using the event type. Okay, we put a lot of different types here. I'm going to go for, what did I call this? Conference. I'm going to go for a conference. I'll call it a hybrid conference. Division has no function for us at all. The system is giving you a time to event here. It's pre-calced based on whatever was entered as the event date. Now we haven't changed the event date, so it's going by whatever was in the template. Now down here, I want to bring your attention to these ASU merge fields. Merge fields are fields with data that can be put into emails as codes, and whatever is entered in that field pre-populates that email or header or footer with whatever data is here. We use these ASU merge codes in the ASU programmed event emails down at the bottom in a footer that looks like, so it looks like a piece of stationery. We have done that for you, and this is where you update those fields. And we have multiple emails, so it's a real time saver to use these. So all you have to do is update these fields. You can see I've been here before. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Oops. Okay, now again, a convention is anytime you make a change and before you leave the page, be sure you hit either save and stay or save and exit. Some other information you may find useful here, or let me go through some of these tabs. The event calendar is not a feature that we use at ASU. The event calendar feature pulls from the entire ASU account, so there's no way to kind of isolate it for your own unit. Salesforce, we do have Salesforce integrations for working with Stova and connecting it to Salesforce, and that's what those fields are for. Doesn't change anything function-wise here in your event registration, but there's information there for that feature. I'm going to skip Alumni Affinity and Thunderbird. Thunderbird has some unique needs, and they've been programmed here. But I wanted to point out is the ASU reporting feature. So these fields are telling us which units are using Stova, and what could be valuable to you is the ASU template version. If you're not sure how old your event registration is that you may want to clone, come to this tab, Overview tab, ASU Reporting, and see what version is listed here. Again, it has no function other than to report. But if you have anything before version 4, you might consider starting with a fresh copy of the template. Okay? All right, that's Overview page, links, marketing, merge fields. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the real bread and butter, customizing this registration site. There are two ways to get to what are called registration settings. I can either use the blue pencil icon over here, or I can go hold my mouse over registration. You see I've got that pull down now. So let me go to registration settings. In fact, before I go further, let me just go through a little navigation since we are in an event registration. Okay. Every time you create a new event, you get a new event number. Okay. If you ever have an issue that you need to contact support, it's a good idea to give them the name of the event and the event number in your first email so that they can go right to it and see what you're referring to. Okay. Because if you don't do that, their first question back will be, what event are you talking about? So they need to look at it. Okay. This is showing the dates that are currently programmed and again, this is in the template, event start and event end. The current location, again, part of the template, we're going to change that. Over here are those event enhancement modules I was talking about. So if you want to add a scheduler or a booth, I'm not going to go into the details of what these do, but if you want to turn them on, you just need to click on them and follow the instructions for activating them. What you also get when you create a new registration site is this event URL. Okay, this is what you would provide your marketing team or use in your emails if you're outside, not using a linked Stova email. Give them this, and this will direct the registrants to the registration site. What we get after activating the registration is, as I said, we're in registration settings now. Preview event gives us a static page by page view of our website. So it's a good way to look at your site as you make adjustments and changes. Up here at the top is how we navigate. We are in the new registration page view right now. I can change this to other pages that are currently activated. One of the keys of this is that if there's no data in a page, it will not appear here. But once you add data, say, for example, I'm not seeing anything for selecting an agenda or a session. That's because I haven't programmed those yet. So that's a Stova convention. Once you add data to a page, that's when things start to appear. Okay. Over to the right of that is the category. Again, we're going to talk about categories at the end of this session, but you can adjust the view of the entire registration site based on a category. So maybe you ask some questions of your general audience and you're doing a faculty staff type of event. You ask different questions of faculty than you do of staff. Okay, and this is a way of checking your work by selecting whatever categories are here. Okay, I don't have any new ones, just the one that's in the template, but we'll see that change later. So that's preview event. Next up, public registration. It's the exact same thing as clicking on the event URL right next to it. It opens up the registration page. Below that is admin registration. Now, this is just for you as a coordinator. It's the same as public registration, except it has a secret. It has a, okay, let's let that do its thing. Great. It has an extra feature for you as an admin, and that's the skip required fields. So if you want to make a registration quickly for somebody, you just need their email address, say, and their first name, last name, you can do that and bypass any required fields that are part of your form, except the payment page. We'll talk about payments in a future masterclass, and we do tell you how to get around that limitation, but that's the one page that you cannot skip when you're using admin registration. Okay. Next, reports and functions will take you to a page of all the reports and a lot of the extra features that are available to you in registration. We'll talk about that during the event administration webinar, and I believe it's next month. The registrant list is one of the most used reports in registration, where you can see the list of your registrants, be able to sort them, filter them for viewing, and adjust any information per attendee. The summary report is a report that gives you a kind of the overview of everything happening in your event. How many people are coming in, how many people have paid, how many people have registered for which sessions, that kind of thing. The hotel and travel report are not features that we typically use. You can see there's a tab for hotel and travel. And those are used if you were doing an event where you had reserved a block of rooms and you wanted people to pay for those rooms through you. You would use the hotel feature to be able to do that in your event registration. And then you can use the hotel report. Travel is just for collecting information about how your attendees are coming to the event. They don't make airplane reservations or anything like that. As I said, we don't get a lot of use for those parts of the system. Okay, I think I've covered everything with navigation. So just in case I've changed anything, I'm going to hit save and stay just before I move forward. All right, so again, deep dive, we're going to talk about everything about Stova and all these fields. The important fields to fill out are anything with the red asterisks. Okay, those are required fields. Again, this is the event name field. Again, we saw it on overview page. We saw it when we created the event in the clone. Here it is again. Also event code. Again, it's just internal. Pardon me. If you do have a question on what a field is for, you can hold your mouse over the question mark, and it will give you information. Usually helpful. Not always, but usually pretty helpful. I'll just repeat that event code is just an internal code. It has no function. It's just something for you to use internally. Okay. The event URL, as I mentioned over here, we already have an event URL, and we are using something called. I should hide my head bubble. There's the event URL. Forgot I was blocking it. This is the link that goes to your registration site. We have something called the URL masking, which is giving us an ASU branded domain name. That's why it says special events here, but you're seeing events cloud down here. It's the same thing, just a redirect. But if you want to, it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. Give this URL something other than a number, you can give it a short name. Now, again, you don't need to worry about this if this link is just going to go behind a button or behind some link text. But if it bothers you, or if you are going to display a URL, you can add a short link. By adding it there, and then hit save, and it should be lowercase. Stay, and now here we go. Okay, lovely. Okay, do not use the custom redirects. That's not a feature you need to use in our system with our account. There's that event type again, as we mentioned already before, what that purpose of that field is. Event status. Now, this actually does have a function in Stova. It determines whether or not your site is live or if you're still testing. Now, people can still click on that event URL even in your testing in the pre-event and start registering. But this is what they will see is this. You are currently testing this event. As long as you're in pre-event, that's what you're going to see even on your registration site. When we are ready to go, part 4 is when we cover this. We'll be going from pre-event to live. Okay, but don't go live until after you're done testing your event. Event image, again, is not something we typically use. It is connected actually to the website builder feature. Same thing with event calendar or enterprise calendar. I said we're not using those features with the ASU account. Maximum registrations and the registration close date. So if you want the registration site to close after so many people have registered for the entire event, then you would enter a number here for maximum registrations. And then when you reach that maximum, the system would automatically close registration. And or if you would like registration to close based on a date and time, you can enter it here under registration close date and time. I just want to mention that you do not have to have any values in either of these fields. You see, they're not required. So you don't have to have a maximum number. You don't have to have a close date. That's up to you. Any time in Stova where we have a field that's going to close the system, there will be a follow-up field for putting a message. So you can tell people why the system will no longer take their registrations. Okay. In our template, we have some text. It looks a little funky. That's because this field is an HTML field. You can tell because HTML fields have this little icon next to it. If you'd like to edit this text, simply click on that button and you will go into an HTML content editor. This should look very similar to Word as far as highlighting what you can change. We can use some pre-selected formatting. We can boldface and italicize, etc., etc. You can add images. Once you're done editing, you can hit update and exit. You'll leave that field, and now you'll have some HTML code in there that will format it for you. Okay, so that's maximum registrations, close dates, and the closed message. Next is the event description. Again, these are all actually merge fields, so we can pull these as merge codes in later. If you have a description, you want a description, you can add it. Actually, I do now. I don't know a fast typer. I just have a little utility that plops in text for me. But one of the things I wanted to point out with these fields, because it confuses some people. So this looks like I've got page break or line breaks after some of these paragraphs, and that's not happening. It's not happening. If you do not see any HTML code, the system will look at it as straight text. To get line breaks, you have to use the HTML. See, the system didn't even look at this or think of this as far as line breaks. So even if you're doing something as simple as wanting line breaks, you got to do them here in the content editor. And now I'm seeing some HTML codes that will make that broken paragraphs. Okay? So again, I'm just going to hit save and stay after I've made a few changes. I don't want to lose them. All right. Next, we have some internal information fields only. Program manager, client contact, login notes. These are just used internally. We ask that you put the name of whoever is in charge of your event in this field, because it can help us if someone has a question, say after you leave, who worked on this event and who is the contact for this event. Even if you're not the contact for the public, to know who's been working on this can be very useful to us. So please put someone's name or your name under Program Manager. Again, no other function than internal information. Next, the event location. This is where you put information for where the venue of your event is. And again, these are merge fields that we can pull into our emails and other places in the system. By default, we just talk about Memorial Union. I'm going to leave this information here. You're welcome to use any of these fields you like. The select venue is not a feature that really helps us here at ASU. This might be useful information, but think of this system built for the conference and trade show industry. Okay, and this is where a lot of these features come from. If you were to click on select venue, you would get a list of a lot of conference centers and venues used by conference and trade show industries. Okay, so you'll probably find the Phoenix Convention Center. You'll find hotels. If that's where your location is, by all means, see if that's in the select venues location. You click on it. You locate that venue. You click add, and then it will pre-populate these address fields for you. But that's what the select venue is for. There's no way for us to program our own venues. Unfortunately, we've asked. But I just wanted to point out, again, deep dive. I'm going to show you every bell and whistle of the system. Okay, next. Now here is where we program the actual dates of our event. Now, by default, we've put in something in the future for 2024. To change a date field like this, you simply click on it, and I'm going to make this for May, and it's going to end on the weekend, and I believe I'm going to start there, and we're going to end on Saturday there. Okay, and again, I've got these are merge fields that I can put in other parts of the system. Below that is the date format. So this will affect the look of any date fields in the system and also how they're displayed and printed on emails. We default to the day, month, day, year, but these others are available to you. Just simply highlight the one you would prefer to use and then hit save and stay, and all the dates in your system, in your registration, will change to those. You can also adjust the time format from 24-hour to from 12-hour to one of the 24-hour options. If you're doing an event with the military, maybe a 24-hour clock makes more sense. You can decide. Now, time zones. So again, we default to Arizona. Back in the before times, and everything was in person. This wasn't a big deal. But consider what you're doing when you're doing a virtual event or a hybrid event. You might want to select a different time zone for everyone. If it's in the U.S., you might need to pick a more common, especially if it's daylight savings time, because nobody understands Arizona time who doesn't live here. Right. So if you're doing an event that's going to be a hybrid for the country, maybe pick Eastern time, maybe pick Pacific time would be a better choice. And if you're doing an international event, you might want to pick, what do we have here? It's the Coordinated Universal Time. Okay, but you have lots of time zones here. And if you're doing an in-person event somewhere else in the world, absolutely pick that time zone here, and that will affect all the times displayed in your system to that time zone. Okay. Good idea. A side note, or as we call it here, a squirrel. Talk to your stakeholders to see if the time zone affects them in other ways. We did an event with climate scientists, and it was an event virtual to be, everyone coming around the world, and I joked that, well, we should have done this as GMT or UTC times, so we didn't have to do all the figuring of times for everyone. And they replied, "Oh, we always work in UTC. It would have been okay." And it's like, if you had told me that, we would. If it was too late to change, we were too close to the event to change it. So have that conversation while you're still in the design phase of your registration. Finally, down here on event info, there are a couple other fields. And this, again, is one of those features of Stova I wanted to bring to your attention. Sometimes you don't see all the features until you've added data. Event homepage is an example of that. Start adding some information, and you will see some other options available. Now, I'm not going to use these for myself. I'll let you look at these, but just be aware that that can happen. So if you're looking for something, see if you need to add some data somewhere in order for it to pop up. Down here, contact info. This is another merge field that is brought into our event emails. Go into the HTML editor to update these, and these will put whatever contact information you want in the confirmation emails, etc. I have another little code for this. Boom, already pre-formatted with my information. Okay, lovely. Okay, so that is the event info basic details. So now the basic details are set. Oh, you know what one thing I've got? I've got the registration close date set after my event. I'll close registration the day before, and I'll set it for, sure, midnight the day before. Okay, before I move on, anyone have any questions about event info basic details or anything else I've talked about so far about cloning or setting up a registration? Seeing nothing in the chat and hearing nothing, I'm going to move on. So we're leaving event emails for another day. I believe it's part 4. We'll talk about that. So I'm going to jump to now registrant rules. registrant rules are where we control group bookings. This is a feature that's turned on by default in our template. If you do not want to have people, and what is group booking? I should explain. So group bookings allows a person to register more than one person during the same registration process. They'll go through and enter their own information. They'll be asked, do you want to add more people to this registration? If they say yes, they'll go through the whole process again. Okay. If you do not want that, if you just want one registration per person, you can turn this off simply by turning that checkbox off. Okay. So you're not allowing registrants to create group bookings. Okay. Turning that feature off turns other group booking features off as well. In fact, I think I can show you what that looks like. Yeah. So if you have group booking turned on, you'll have this web page. After a person submitted their registration, they'll get this question. If they hit yes, they'll be taken to another page where it says, okay, give me the email address of the next person and we'll start another registration. And they can add, they can add and add and add. And at some point they've added all members of their family or their team or their school group, whatever. And then they can hit complete registration and that will register all those people individually. If you disable this feature, you will not see that page. You will not see the page that asks you a question, do you want to add? Those two pages disappear. I do get that question from time to time. How do I get rid of this page? It's like, well, turn off the feature. Okay. By default, we enable group registrations for all attendees. Now, I only have one category currently programmed, but as I add more categories, it becomes a decision of mine. Do I want all those categories to be able to use the group booking feature? Sometimes the answer is no. And if it is, I can uncheck that. I will see the entire list of categories and I'll be able to choose which ones can use the group booking feature. Okay, we're going to come back to that in a little bit. The other feature we have turned on by default is sending confirmation emails to all in group based on an email. It's probably a good idea to just pause here a second and talk again about Stova and how it looks at registration. There are two different types of registration systems. One, in my opinion, one is ticketing. They just want to know how many tickets you want for the event. And they may ask you for information for each person, or they just want to know a number. And then there's the more personal, people-oriented registration, where the system wants to know information about everyone in your party. That's Stova. It is designed to be able to collect that information for recruiting purposes, right? For marketing purposes, for security purposes. It wants to get an email address and a name for everyone, and that's how it's set up to do. Now you can adjust it to do ticket-like things, but I'm just letting you know that's how registration module works and why it works the way it does. Okay, it wants to get information for everybody who's coming. Okay, which is why we send the confirmation email to everyone in the group. Example is Open Door. We use it for Open Door, or have. People may come together in one group, but they might not. They might show up at the different check-in booths on their own, and we want to be able to send each person in the party information. And that's why that's checked. You can look at some of these other features and decide if they are useful to you. One that might be useful is this one, the maximum number of additional attendees per registration. So if you want to limit how many people can be added in a group registration across the board, you can do it here. So if you're doing a +1 event, the first person in is called the primary registrant. So the next person added to the group would be the additional attendee. Set it for 1, hit save and stay. Now they can only add one other person to their group registration. This can only be used across the board for all categories. You cannot designate some categories as getting different maximum attendees. It's all or nothing. Okay. I especially wanted to mention the use of the maximum number, because Some people like to use or have used this guest registration permissions. What's the difference? Well, group bookings is designed for as many additional attendees as you want. Guest registrations was originally designed for a +1 situation, but it has a lot of limitations. In fact, when we trained with Stova trainers 6 years ago, even they were waving us away from this feature, saying it's really not as robust as group bookings. Better to use group bookings. What are those limitations? Well, if you enable it, you'll see this little message. So if you're using the guest function, you cannot print the badge for the guest. They will not be counted against a maximum registration number on the event info page. All these other limitations. So it's just not a good feature to use. I would avoid it. I recommend avoiding it. And instead stick to using group registration permissions instead. Okay? The other feature we have on registrant rules is this modification permissions. So you have the option to allow your registrants to return to their original registrations to edit their registrations. Okay, if you want to. If you, they can modify and they can cancel registrations. Your choice. If you do not want them to modify registrations or even have that option, again, just check this box so you'll no longer allow them that option. If you do uncheck this box, just a word of warning that we have some text in the confirmation emails on how to modify. You might want to review that text and remove it if you are not using this feature. Okay? But if you are using the feature, you can decide what areas you're allowing your attendees to edit. Attendee info is all the questions that you're asking your registrants. First name, last name, contact information, addresses, any other questions you're asking them. If you don't want them to change that, you can disable that. The agenda, as you'll see, is where we're going to list the sessions of our conference. Can people change those settings? You decide. Options is a place where you can put things like merchandise or final questions. Again, we're not using hotels, we're not using travel. Guest information. So can the first person who entered information for themselves change registration information for their guests? There's no approval process part of Stova. We're not talking about that in any of our master classes. Can they add more additional attendees? Is an option. And will you allow your attendees to cancel themselves? And this is your call. Some units don't mind this. Other units have said, absolutely not. I want them to contact me. If you do enable this, just one thing to know is if your event has fees that are paid, if an attendee cancels themselves, those fees are not, repeat, not automatically refunded. There's a whole other process to go through to refund the money. They're just telling you their registration is canceled. Okay, just so you know. In that kind of a case, you might want to turn this off and have them contact you just to avoid any confusion from your audience. Another option for modifying is who can modify in a group booking situation. Is it just the person who submitted the group registration, the primary attendee? Or can any attendee go in and change their own registration? Or can any attendee change any other attendee's registration? We've gone for door number 2, allowing any the attendees to change themselves. But you have those options. Now, when you're using the modify registrations feature, there is a special page that you're going to send the registrants back to modify, a special gateway. It's not the registration gateway. To get there, we provide this URL. This is customized for every event registration. It's unique. In our event emails, there is a special merge code that we use to provide that link to the registrants of the email. But it's here if you need the direct absolute link, absolute URL for your purposes. Oh, and I kind of glossed over it. Let me go back here and mention when they do go back to a modification page, they need to provide two pieces of information in order to get back into their registration. And by default, we ask for an email address and the reference number. The reference number is a number assigned to each attendee. The confirmation email provides it. Usually every email we send provides it to them. But if you want to make it simpler for people, you can change what that second field is. It can be any field that's on the attendee info section. We don't cover attendee info today. We'll be covering that actually tomorrow, if I recall. But these are the fields that are currently open. These fields also affect things like logging into a Stova mobile app and into the Stova virtual lobby if you're using the virtual feature. So just be aware of that impact if you're using any of those features. Okay. I'm going to leave the defaults turned on. Further down, you can also control where people land when they go back into their registration site. So say you just need them to go back in and pay for something, you can designate the payment page. Or you want them to skip the attendee info and head to the agenda page, whatever. You can control which page the attendees will return to once they enter through the modification portal. Okay. Now that was a lot of information in those two sections, and that's the way it goes in Stova. Are there any questions on group bookings or modification permissions before I move on? Okay, hearing none and seeing none in the chat. Again, if something pops up in your head, we will have some time at the end. In fact, I think we might be finishing a little early today, which is, I think, fine with everybody. I do want to mention one other thing down here at the bottom are account level and event level block lists. So if you find yourself in a situation where you do not want someone registering for your events, you can create a block list so that they cannot do that. You have to provide, I believe, the email address they could come from to register. You can do this at the event level yourselves simply by clicking Add New List and filling out the form. If you need something that's going to be used frequently, like Sandra Day O'Connor apparently had, and Teachers College, contact us. You can contact us at stova@asu.edu, and we can create one at the account level. If you create an event level, it's just going to be in this event registration. I don't know if it clones with that event registration, but if you just need it to go for any event registration, going account level is the way to go. If you do this, again, this is a way that someone's going to not be able to register. Down here is where you can give them a message, whatever your message is. The event is closed if you want to be polite about it, or whatever reason it's you're not letting people in. We do advise that if you are going to use a block list, that you get some email from a supervisor that they want you to use this feature, just as insurance, just that you know it's not you. Somebody has requested this be used. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about the block lists. Okay. Next, waitlisting. We get a lot of requests for this feature. So if you are going to somehow close your registration, either with a time date or a number, limiting maximum number, you can have people sign up for a wait list here. This feature works at the event level and also for categories. There's a way to put a limit for how many people can register in a category. We're going to see that next. But I just want to make that clear because we're going to talk about a third kind of waitlisting called session waitlisting later when we talk about agenda sessions. Okay. To turn waitlisting on, click the button, and you must fill out, at the very least, the asterisk required fields. The wait link text, so what do you want people to say, or what do you want the link to say when you have that situation? Maybe something like, click to add your name to the wait list. It can be as simple as that. Okay, that will be the link text, what they click on to be added to the wait list. If you want to use these other features, you can. The sold out message might be good to tell people why this is closed, or what's to do next. Headers, text are optional, but the processing mode is required, and you have two choices. Automatic waitlisting means that if a registrant or you as a coordinator cancel someone's registration and a seat opens up, the system will automatically send the first person in the wait list an email saying, hey, we got a space open. If you want to sign up, click here and enter your information. Or if you don't want that to happen, say you want to control who to send that email to, then you would select manual. It becomes an entirely manual process. So it's all up to you to send those emails. Now, if you click the big blue button and didn't follow my suggestion on cloning an old template or new template, and you use the defaults, you would have no emails in the event email section for this. You have to have at least 2 for automatic to work. And you should probably have 2 if you plan to use the manual system. Okay, one is the confirmation that they actually registered for waitlisting, and the second is the email to offer them a seat. Okay, so this automatic system will not work if you don't have those 2 emails pre-programmed in your registration site. You can decide which categories will use waitlisting, again, just like you could select who could use group bookings. So we'll just turn that on there. Registration, invite, expiration. So you're going to offer a person time to register for the event. You probably don't want to leave it open-ended. So how much time do you want to give them to register for your event? Is it 12 hours? Is it 24 hours? Or is it a day? Is it some weekdays? You can decide. And then again, because it could close, if they miss that window and they try to register, here's your opportunity to give them a message saying, sorry, better luck next time. You've been, whatever you want to put for the message, is saying, I'm sorry, your time has expired. We'll add you, you're still in the wait list, and we'll contact you with the next open seat. Yeah. Then the last thing you do is decide which fields you want to have people fill out to be added when they're added to the wait list. So I want the email address. I like first name, last name at the minimum, but whatever you want to add. So that has manual there. So now I have selected everything that's required of me for waitlisting. Now I can turn this on. Okay. Now, tricky bit about waitlisting. This is incredibly hard to test on whether the waitlisting system is working. To test it, what I would suggest is under Event Info Basic Details, set the maximum number to a very low number. If you've already done some test registrations, put it as a number that's fewer than that. Either way, you need to add some test registrations to hit that number so you can see how the waitlisting feature works. And then when we talk about reports and functions on event administration, that's when we'll talk about how to find those people who have registered if you're going to use the manual feature. Okay, so just a word of caution on using waitlisting. Any questions on waitlisting before I move on to the last big topic of today? again, hearing none and seeing none. Okay, now we're going to jump into the next major section, which is categories. Now, I consider categories the most powerful feature of Stova because, first off, you can use it to categorize people as soon as they come in your system. That's great for reporting. You can also use it throughout the system to control what people see when they're answering questions on forums, how much they pay, what sessions they see under agenda sessions. You can use it for sending emails to different categories. So I'm going to keep general admission, but I need to add some more categories for my event. To add a new category, I'm just going to click Add Category. And we'll start with exhibitors. We call it exhibitor vendor. And just hit save and exit. Okay. So by default, it's added the category and it's made what is called public. And it's turned on admin. Now what does that mean? Well, if I go back to preview event, give this a refresh, it means that now on my registration page, I'm seeing two categories. When I just had the one, I didn't see even general admission. The system just assumes they're all going into that category. But now that they've created two, now the system says, okay, you're giving people a choice. And that might not be what I want to do, especially for exhibitor. This is your call. Let me finish creating categories and I'll explain why. You can create more categories either by clicking Add Category, or you can also clone other categories. And I'm going to do one for my sponsors. And I'm going to do one just for my event staff. See, I've got a lot of things popping up here as pre-populated. Okay. Now, for my purposes, I do not want all these folks to, and if I would go back to here, I'd see all those categories that could just create it. Great. My strategy is I want to use that event URL just for my audience. I'm going to do something different for exhibitors and sponsors and even staff. So I'm going to turn visibility off, public visibility for these categories. And now when I go back to that event, I don't see any categories. Now the system again assumes everyone's going to come in through is general admission, who comes through that link. So what am I going to do for my exhibitors? I'm going to go and show you what has happened after creating a category. And I'm also going to explain some of these fields here. So again, category name should be obvious what we've got here. Category reference, again, just another internal field for information for you and your team. Anytime you see a short name, it is giving you the option to create an abbreviation for whatever's in this field, a name or a question field. So you could have a very long category name, like you're doing a summer camp and you want to put the dates here. That name will show up on your reports, that big long name. And if you want to have a shorter name appear on reports, even on screen, you can put a short name here and that will override on reports what that name or data is in that field. Okay, that's the short name. If you are doing a case where you have multiple categories that are visible on the new registration page, you might want to include a description of that. Again, I'm using a trade show example here, so I have general admission, exhibitors, sponsors, and staff. You could also create categories for a university event where you want to know faculty versus staff versus students. And that way they self-categorize. And again, you're going to control questions as they go through that system. As I mentioned, some units have used it for the dates of their summer programs. What I call categories, it's the first question I'm going to ask people when they arrive on my registration site. Basically, who are you? Okay, that's the first question I'm going to ask. Um, you could also ask, which date are you coming to our big summer camp? Okay, so that's categories. This is the next important thing, and it's really cool. It's called the direct link. So you didn't see this when I just clicked create or clone. You won't see the direct link until after you've hit save. Now, the direct link is a URL that takes people straight into that category. Similar to the event registration, the event URL for general attendance, I can use this to send an email to my exhibitors and say, hey, click here to register for the trade show, and they will automatically be registered under the category of exhibitor vendor. Okay, that's the direct link. Every category gets a unique direct link. Okay. And here I mentioned there's a way to limit how many people can use a category for registration. You can set a maximum number of registrations using this category. Now be careful if you use this, especially if you're going to clone this event, because this will get cloned with the new event. We've had the situation where people forgot that and they set an event level maximum and forgot they set a maximum here and say, why can't people register here? Check your category. See if you have some data in the maximum attendees. Is this one of those? Okay, I just wanted to check that it wasn't one of those hidden field things. And once again, when you have a field that's going to close a registration, you have a field for giving them a message of your choice. Why can I no longer register? What you can also use in categories are subcategories. So remember, I said this is the first question I'm going to ask attendees. Subcategories can be the second question. I'll create some of those for our sponsorship levels in a minute. Down here we have visibility, and you're going to see this feature in lots of different places in the Stova registration system. Visibility based on public users. Again, these are the people who are just registering through sites. Admin users, that's you. Okay. As I said, I've turned off public visibility for exhibitors here. You also have group members. So if you didn't have group bookings turned on, this section wouldn't even be here. But it is turned on so you can show things just to the primary or first person into a registration and or to people who are the additional registrants. Okay. I'm not going to show this until we get to attendee info questions, but this is one way to select which questions can be viewed and filled out by which categories. We'll talk about that tomorrow during attendee info. Down here are some advanced settings. So if you do have a description in the description field above this field, it will pop up. It'll be a more info link will show up, and they click that, and then a little pop-up window with your description shows up. If you would prefer that description shows all the time, just disable this feature, and it will be displayed along with the category page. You can also set a time when the category is available, right? A date and time. This category is only available from this date to this time. Okay. If you want to add a little security, you can make a password that people need to provide to get into this category. Again, we don't use the event calendar. I'm not going to worry about that. This section of group bookings and additional registrations is something you will not see unless group bookings is enabled. In fact, I think now they have a little message saying, hey, if you need some features for group bookings, turn it on. Okay. We only see these for when a group booking is turned on and enabled for this category. Again, I'm not going to go into details of these, except how I'm going to use this for one of those special purposes I mentioned on the overview of this event. I said that our exhibitor can have reps as part of their registration. So I want to have one category to collect information on the company for the exhibitor, and I want a different category for their reps. Because once I know their category and they're adding them by group registration, I don't need to keep asking the reps, what company do you work for? or what your contact information is. For the reps, I'm just going to need their email address and their name. So how can I do that? Well, this is something I call chained registrations. We have group bookings on, and I'm going to use this next in their group feature. By default, it says they can select in a category, and I rarely let that happen. I don't want people to pick their categories. I like to create a flow of the registration system, right? So I'm controlling how people are going. The less my attendees have to think, the better it is for everybody. Okay, so first person in, I'm in the the exhibitor vendor category. I'm going to use that for the vendor name. For the reps, I'm going to use exhibitor. So what's going to happen is after the first person comes in, they're going to enter as the exhibitor vendor, fill out their information. When they're saying, can I add some people? If they say yes, the next person will be an exhibitor. I may even change it to exhibitor rep to make it more obvious in this demo. But okay, that's what I call a chained registration. So I'm just going to save that there. Okay, let me go back and now talk about those subcategories, how handy they can be. To add a subcategory, click Add Subcategory, and we'll go for the gold level. And you'll notice some very similar looking fields here as well. I've got a reference, again, internal reference. I can give this a short name if I need a short name in my reports. Another way to, description, if I need it. I can sell a maximum number. Maybe I only want to have so many gold level sponsorships. Why would I limit that? That's going to be the most expensive one. And a way to give them a message if that is true. More visibility settings for a subcategory. Some similar settings for advanced settings, so pop-ups for description fields, so passwords, and what happens to the next. Well, there's not going to be a next after this. I guess the next, well, it would be a sponsor, but again, they're not. I am going to set it so the sponsors are only going to use, they're not going to allow group bookings for sponsors. Who's going to register more than one sponsor? Nobody. So that's the setup for that. All right, this is the subcategory now for gold. I can hit that again, and we'll do silver. And I'm on an Olympics theme here. Bronze. Okay, so they will come in. Again, sponsors are going to be like exhibitors. I'm going to send a special email with a special link using the direct link for the sponsors category. So I'm already asking them the first question, who are you? Your sponsors. They will then answer the second question, gold level, gold, silver, or bronze. And I'm going to put different price points on the subcategories when I get to that pricing feature. Okay. Keeping track here that I've got 3 subcategories. I should show you just how that direct link works. So you're not going to really see a difference, right? To the person registering, it just looks like a regular registration. But up here, I can see that it's already pre-programming the category ID. And so the system will know that this person's an exhibitor. Lovely. Let's go back over here. Anything change up here? So here I'm on, again, preview. But now I have those categories showing up in this pull down. So as we progress, we're going to be able to go through and look at these different, if we make any changes, these different registration flows, if you would. Okay. So, let's see. I've given you a variety of use cases. Any questions on categories? We're kind of coming to the end here for this part 1 of the sorry, my tech isn't working for me. Reached part one of our event builder. Trying to think if there's anything else I should mention about categories that I did not write down here. You can create new categories after your event registration site has gone live for whatever purpose you need. You can move attendees from one category to another. We'll talk a bit about that on Event Administration Day with dealing with attendee management. What else with categories? I actually think that's it. What's coming up again tomorrow, we'll be talking about the attendee info fields. That is the forms you ask your attendees to fill out, the different questions you want them to answer. And we'll also be talking about the agenda and options tab, which includes agenda and sessions, setting up locations, setting up speakers, dealing with options, which generally tends to be merchandise that you can sell. So that again is not tomorrow, it's next Thursday, same bat time. Same bat. It looks like I'm going to be able to give you some time back to your day, which is great because I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. And again, if any of you want to unmute and ask. If you do think of something after this session and it's like, what? I need to ask. Here are a couple different ways that you can get information. You can always post a question on our Slack channel. You as a user are usually automatically enrolled in our Slack channel. Post your question and let the hive mind of other users come to your aid. You can also, again, go to our support site, stova.asu.edu. We may have the answers there. Or you can send us an email, stova@asu.edu. If you have a more complicated question, you just want some time with one of the account admins to go through your unique situation, just send us an email. Happy to set up an office hour appointment or a consultation to answer your questions. So yeah, that's it for today, folks. Thanks for joining me. And after the video is finished processing, you will receive an email. I think it'll arrive tomorrow with the link to this video recording. So have a good rest of your day.